The house smelled like warm bread and sugar, the kind of scent that was supposed to feel like home. Balloons floated near the ceiling, pale blue and white, brushing softly against the walls whenever someone walked past. My sister sat in the center of it all, glowing in that effortless way she always had, her newborn cradled against her chest like a treasure the world had been waiting for. Everyone crowded around her, phones were raised, compliments poured out, laughter filled the space so completely that it pressed against my ears. I stood near the window, holding my glass with both hands, watching my reflection in the darkened glass. I looked like a guest at someone else's celebration, present, but not expected to speak. My father cleared his throat. That sound alone was enough to quiet the room. He stood, straightening his jacket, lifting his glass with a proud smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The room leaned toward him, eager. "To my youngest daughter," he began, his voice rich with emotion. "You've given us the greatest gift, a new life, a new reason to celebrate." Applause erupted. Someone wiped away tears. My sister smiled, the kind of smile she'd practiced her whole life, the one that made everyone feel like she deserved everything good. I clapped too, slowly, politely, because that's what I'd always done. Then my father's gaze shifted. It landed on me like a spotlight I hadn't asked for. "And you?" he said lightly, as if this were a harmless joke. "When's your turn?" The laughter faltered. A few people chuckled awkwardly, waiting for my response, assuming I'd laugh it off like I always did. My heart thudded hard against my ribs. The question wasn't new, but tonight, something in me refused to shrink. I looked at my father. At the man who had never missed my sister's milestones. The man who had somehow missed mine. "7 months ago," I said. The room froze. "What?" he asked, confused. "7 months ago," I repeated, my voice quiet but steady. "That's when my turn was." Silence swallowed the room whole. My father frowned, searching his memory like it was a misplaced object. "I don't understand." "You were invited," I said. The words tasted strange in my mouth. Simple, honest, heavy. I turned my gaze, just for a moment, toward my sister. She stared down at her baby, her smile gone, her fingers tightening around the blanket. "Your favorite daughter," I continued, my voice trembling only slightly. Through the invitation in the trash. A collective breath was drawn. Someone shifted uncomfortably. Someone else cleared their throat. My sister didn't look up. "I didn't think it was serious," she murmured. The words hit harder than shouting ever could. Not serious. My wedding. My life. My love. I nodded slowly, more to myself than anyone else. "That's been the problem," I said. "You never did." No one argued. No one laughed. The balloons bobbed gently above us, unaware of the invisible cracks splitting the room apart. I set my glass down carefully, afraid that if I didn't, my hands would shake too much. For years, I had swallowed moments like this, turned pain into patience, told myself that love would come if I waited long enough. But standing there, watching my father struggle to remember something that had meant everything to me, I finally understood. Some people don't forget. They just choose what matters. And for the first time in my life, I chose myself. The invitation had been simple. Cream-colored cardstock, soft gold lettering, nothing flashy, just like me. I remember standing at the kitchen counter late one night, smoothing each envelope with care, as if my hands could press love into the paper. Every name I wrote carried a quiet hope. Every stamp felt like a promise sent into the world. When I addressed my father's envelope, I hesitated. I rewrote his name twice, wanting it to look perfect, wanting him to see it and know that I still wanted him there, that I still believed he cared. Inside, I slipped a small note. "I know we haven't talked much lately," I wrote, "but it would mean everything to have you walk me down the aisle." I folded it carefully. I remember smiling as I sealed the envelope, imagining him reading it, maybe pausing, maybe feeling something he didn't usually show. I didn't know then that he never would. A week later, my sister called. "Your invitations came," she said casually. "I picked up the mail." "That's great," I replied, relief washing over me. "Did Dad see his?" There was a pause, just long enough to feel wrong. "He's been busy," she said. "I'll give it to him later." Later never came. Days passed, then weeks. No call, no questions, no acknowledgement. I told myself not to overthink it. I'd been trained my whole life to excuse silence, to translate neglect into understanding. Dad was tired. Dad was stressed. Dad would show up when it mattered. But as the wedding day crept closer, the silence grew heavier. I asked again. She sighed. "You're moving too fast," she said. "Don't you think?" Too fast. I'd been with my partner for years. We'd built a life quietly without applause. But in her voice, I heard something sharper than concern. Dismissal. "Dad wouldn't approve anyway," she added. "I didn't want him upset." That was when I realized the truth. She hadn't forgotten. She had decided. Decided that my joy was inconvenient, that my moment didn't deserve the same space hers always did. Decided without asking that she could throw away something sacred to me. The invitation, the note, the chance. I didn't confront her then. I didn't have the strength. Instead, I folded inward, grieving something I hadn't even lost yet, because it had never really been mine to begin with. The wedding day arrived quietly. No dramatic absence, no empty chair marked with sadness, just a reality I had already learned to accept. My father didn't call, didn't text, didn't ask where to be. As I stood in the mirror adjusting my dress, I waited for the pain to overwhelm me. It didn't. Instead, there was a strange calm. Like my heart had already made room for this disappointment long before my mind caught up. When I walked down the aisle, I didn't look for him. I looked ahead. At the person who chose me without hesitation, who never needed convincing that I was worth showing up for. After the ceremony, friends hugged me, laughed with me, told me I looked radiant, loved. And in that circle of warmth, something shifted. I saw clearly how little effort it took to be present, and how loudly absence speaks. Weeks later, my aunt pulled me aside at a family gathering. "I didn't know about the wedding," she said softly. "Your sister said it wasn't happening." The words landed gently, but they changed everything. It wasn't misunderstanding. It was erasure. And that was the moment I stopped waiting, stopped hoping for apologies that would never come, stopped explaining myself to people who had already decided who mattered. The invitation hadn't just been thrown away, it had revealed the truth. And sometimes, truth is the most painful gift of all, until it becomes the reason you finally set yourself free. Leaving wasn't dramatic. There was no final argument, no slam doors, no long speeches about how unfair everything had been. I simply stopped reaching first, stopped checking my phone for messages that never came, stopped shaping my life around the hope that someday they would notice. At first, the silence felt heavy. I had spent so long measuring my worth by their reactions that without them, I didn't know who I was supposed to be. When holidays came around, I felt the ache of absence more than the absence itself, not because I missed them, but because I missed the version of me that still believed things could change. But slowly, something unexpected happened. The quiet became peaceful. Mornings no longer started with tension. I didn't brace myself before conversations or rehearse explanations in my head. I woke up in a home filled with warmth, not expectation. The kind of place where love wasn't earned. It was given. I began to notice small things. How my partner listened without interrupting. How laughter came easier when I wasn't trying to impress anyone. How relief settled into my chest when I realized no one was judging my choices. For the first time, I wasn't the other daughter. I was just me. I started doing things I'd always postponed. Painting again. taking long walks without a destination, saying no without guilt. Each choice felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd left behind to keep the peace. I didn't talk about my family much, not because I was ashamed, but because they no longer defined my story. When people asked, I kept it simple. We're not very close, I'd say. And for once, that didn't feel like a failure. It felt like honesty. Healing wasn't fast. Some nights, I still replayed old moments, wondering what I could have done differently, wondering why being good had never been enough. But instead of drowning in those thoughts, I learned to sit with them, to let them pass without judgment. I realized something important. I hadn't lost a family. I had lost an illusion, and letting go of it made room for something real. Friends became chosen family, the kind who remembered important dates, who showed up without being asked, who celebrated my happiness without comparison. They didn't need convincing. They didn't need reminders. They just cared. I learned how it felt to be included without competing. One afternoon, months later, I caught my reflection in a cafe window and barely recognized the person staring back at me. Not because I looked different, but because I looked calm. There was no tightness in my shoulders, no practiced smile, no fear of saying the wrong thing. I looked like someone who belonged to herself, and that was new. I didn't become harder. I didn't become cold. I became clearer. I stopped explaining my boundaries, stopped justifying my distance. I let people believe whatever version of me they needed to. Peace, I learned, doesn't require permission. Occasionally, messages came through. A short text from my father, a forwarded photo from my sister. I responded politely, briefly, with the same energy I received. No bitterness, no longing, just balance. Because growth doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop bleeding for people who never notice the wound. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need validation. My life was proof enough. I had built something steady, something warm, something honest. And in doing so, I became someone they could no longer control, compare, or overlook. I became whole. And the strongest part? I didn't do it to be seen. I did it because I finally saw myself. The call came on an ordinary afternoon. I almost didn't answer. The name on the screen sat there longer than it should have, glowing softly like a memory I had already put away. For a moment, I wondered if ignoring it would feel easier. But avoidance wasn't part of who I was anymore. So I answered. Hello? There was a pause, a breath. Then my father's voice, older than I remembered. I didn't know, he said. Those 3 words hung between us, fragile and heavy at the same time. I know, I replied. He started explaining, talking about confusion, about misunderstandings, about how no one told him anything. I listened quietly, not because I needed the explanation, but because I no longer needed to interrupt. When he finished, the silence returned. I would have come, he added, if I'd known. I closed my eyes, because that was the difference between us. I had always known he wouldn't come, and yet I had still hoped. I believe you, I said gently, and I did. But knowing now doesn't change what happened. He didn't argue. I didn't realize how much it mattered to you, he said. That was the truth, and it hurt less than it once would have, because I had already healed the wound his words opened. It mattered, I said. And now, it doesn't have to. He was quiet for a long time. I'm proud of you, he finally said. I thanked him. And for the first time, I meant it without needing it. Weeks later, we met again. Another family gathering. Different reason. Same table. The energy had shifted. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't bracing myself. I wasn't hoping for anything. I arrived whole, carrying nothing that needed approval. My sister smiled at me, unsure. Things worked out for you, she said. They had, and that was the revenge she never saw coming. I didn't correct her, didn't remind her of the invitation, didn't reopen old wounds. because the truth had already landed. I had built a life that didn't orbit around her. My father watched me differently that night, like he was seeing me for the first time, not as the quiet one, not as the reliable one, but as someone complete. When he raised his glass again, the room fell silent, just like before. "This family," he said carefully, "has grown in many ways." His eyes met mine. "And we've missed some things," he added, "but we're learning." It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement, and that was enough. Because revenge doesn't have to be loud to be satisfying. Sometimes it's just living well in front of the people who once couldn't see you. Later, as I walked out into the cool night air, my phone buzzed. A message from my partner. "You okay?" I smiled. "More than okay," I replied. "I'm free." And I meant it. I had said my truth without cruelty. I had stood my ground without anger. I had moved forward without dragging the past behind me. The greatest victory wasn't being chosen. It was choosing myself and never apologizing for it. Because when someone asks now, "When's your turn?" I don't hesitate. I don't explain. I don't look back. I just smile and keep walking.